I have done so much since last week. It's not done, which is a problem because the game that I was trying to finish it for is tonight. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 162 of the Love and Stitches podcast. This is going to be the last podcast episode for 2022, which is crazy to think about. I'll explain more later on, like what's coming up for the rest of the year. There's still lots of videos going on my channel, especially with Vlogmas and everything. But as far as regular podcast episodes go, we're going to have a break next week. We're going to have a special video on the last Thursday of the year. And then coming back in 2 weeks time, 2 or 3 weeks, 2, 3, I don't know. The first week of January, I'll be back to regular podcasts. So I won't be away from podcasting for too long. Okay. I am in the living room today for really no other reason except for the fact that I am working out of the bedroom this week because we have guests with us who are staying in the living room. They're obviously not here right now. And I thought it would be nice to just get out of the bedroom while I can. I have only been working in there for approximately 3 hours and I already am ready to get out. So I made it a little bit festive here with some lights and my cute little felted Christmas tree. And I decided to put on a handmade item today. Honestly, I'm just like, I felt like it, so I'm gonna do it. I'm getting in the spirit, I'm gonna do it. So I guess it's the spirit of fiber. But I pulled this out of my drawer, and as I put it on, I had the thought that I don't think I've ever actually worn this out. So I don't know if I'll continue to wear it today, but I feel like I need to start wearing this because I am so proud of this piece. So let me tell you about it real quick and then we'll get into the projects. So this is the Tessellation Tee by Stephanie Aaron, and it is a crocheted top. It is my very first crochet color work, and it's not my first crochet garment, but it's like I've attempted many crochet garments, and this is one of the ones that came out the best, and I didn't frog. So I will link the project page down below to talk about the yarns and everything. But yeah, it's just a cute little fitted tee that's got some shaping and color work, and I did like yarn management because my dye lots were definitely different, and I'm really proud of this, and it's very comfortable, and I think it fits really well. And my gosh, why am I not wearing this more? You know, this would be really fun to do in like contrasting like holiday colors where you like white or green or white and red. Anyway, it was a fun project to do. So one other thing before we move on, no, 2 other things. This is a part 2 of the Q&A episode. If you want to see all the questions that I answered, you'll have to watch last week's episode and then this week's episode. So when we get to our special segment part, I'm going to be answering more of your questions that I got from Instagram. And then just a warning that I am going to be showing a project that has the Fangirl Fibers Advent in it up to day 15, which is today. So if you haven't opened today's, just make sure you look at it before you see the project that I'm going to show. Okay, I feel like that is it for this very long intro. So let's get right into the projects. First up, I have my Musselburgh hat, which actually moved into this project bag only yesterday because I needed to carry it around with me, but I've been carrying it in my Sockmas project bag. And this is the Musselburgh by Isolde Teague, but I have made some serious modifications to it, so I will talk you through that. But look, I have done so much since last week. It's not done, which is a problem because the game that I was trying to finish it for is tonight. So, okay, I'm still proud of myself though. From this progress keeper, my cute little Mickey from Lock and Lou from last year to here is how much I have done over the last week, which again is something I think to be proud of. It's something of merit. It's not for lack of trying. I've really tried to get it done for tonight. So let me talk you through the modifications. And I've just recently updated this project page with a lot more clear details. I have always tried to keep my project pages informative so that if I'm making this project again, I have notes for it. But also if you're making a similar pattern and you want to see like what I've done, that it's easy for you to read. And I realized that my notes on some things were kind of cryptic. Like if I go back to them and can't understand them, then how can somebody who has not made the project understand them? So I've been trying to go back for my most recent projects, my current whips, and make things a whole lot clearer. So check back on this if you looked at it before and you were like, huh? The notes are a lot clearer now, I think. So I am making the adult, you know what? I'm not even gonna say what size I'm making because I'm kind of making an in-between size. When I first started making Musselburgh hats, there was not a pattern for the stitch gauge of 8 stitches per inch. Now there is. So I kind of made up my own in-between size, but I've got that in the pattern description. So I'm making somewhere between like a small and medium, I think. But I have modified the first half for 1x1 ribbing. And then on this particular hat, I changed colors once I finished like the, majority of the body of one side of the hat. And for this middle section here, I've continued ribbing, but changed to my variegated colorway. And I'm doing helical knitting. So I have 2 balls of yarn. Where are you? 2 balls of yarn, which I'm running really close to the end on, so that the color pulling doesn't all stay in one place and kind of spreads out. It's been working with varying success. I mean, it looks pretty wild. And then just recently, I changed on this half of the hat to stockinette stitch. I'm still continuing helical knitting, but you can see that the color pulling has changed. It's like it's gone back in the other direction. I made my husband, Kent, a hat very similar to this. It's also a Musselburgh, but his doesn't have this like ribbing section in the middle. His is solid green rib and then straight into stockinette. I did like a purl ridge in between. I also beefed up that project page notes. And his hat has a different stitch count. It's a little bit larger. So his looks totally different than this. And it's always wild, like it's hard to predict what variegated yarn is going to do. And I will say I'm not a huge fan of variegated yarn for that reason. I kind of like the predictability of speckles, tonals, and solids. But this yarn is a special custom dyed yarn that I got to represent the Dallas Stars, the hockey team that we're going to see play tonight. So yeah, I'm not going to be wearing this tonight, but I'm going to bring it to the game and I'm going to work on it. I don't know quite how much more I have to go. I have, I want to say after the crown, it's like 5.5 to 5.25 inches in the solid green. The middle section here is like 6.5, 7 inches. And then I'll need to do the same thing here on the other side to match this. So about 5.5 inches of just stockinette. I've been working really hard on that, but there's a lot of stitches. It takes a minute. And then I'll go into the crown. So we'll see how much I get done. I mean, wouldn't it be like the cherry on top if I finish it during the game tonight and I can like get a picture? I mean, I will say that that is the dream. You will probably know before this podcast comes out what happens, but that would be the ultimate dream. So the one other thing I have to say is that I'm getting close to the end of these 2 yarns, and I have more yarn, like plenty of the variegated yarn, plenty. But my concern, my thought is that if I add in new yarns, it's going to totally change the color pulling. And this hat was already finished at one point, and then I ripped it out because of the color pulling and also because of the length. I just didn't really like a fitted hat on me. So this one's going to be slouchy with the fold up brim. And I'm like, wouldn't that be a shame if after all this effort that I add in the new colors and the color pulling totally changes and I hate it. So what I'm hoping that happens is that this is enough yarn to get me through. I mean, I really think I only have a couple inches left of just solid stockinette before I start the crown. So I'm hoping this yarn gets me through the main body of the hat up to the crown, because in Kent's hat that is similar to this, actually, it would make more sense if I grabbed it. So 1 second. Okay, Ken's hat, you can see is similar, but different. Like, look how even his stripes are. And this is the same yarn, just with a different stitch count and also helical knitting. So weird. But his is just a fitted hat, half rib and half stockinette with a pearl ridge when I changed colors in the solid green. So for Ken's hat, when I got to the crown, I was still doing helical knitting, so still 2 balls of yarn, and it was starting to change the pooling. So I stopped, I let go of one of the yarns, cut that, and just continued with a single yarn for the crown. Because when you change your stitch count, obviously the way that the colors line up changes too. And so that seemed to be much more spread out with the colors, more similar to this with the single yarn. So I'm thinking that if these little bits that I have left can get me through the crown, maybe hopefully the first couple rounds of decreases, then I can switch to just a single ball of one of my leftover bits, and it will be okay because it will be a part of the hat, the crown, that's already a little different. And if I use a singular yarn, it will be sort of matching. But isn't that so wild? Like how different. I'm also doing stockinette, but I don't know, I can't remember exactly how many stitches different these 2 hats are, but like so different in how they're looking. Same techniques, same yarns. So wild. But Kit will be able to wear his hat tonight if he chooses to do so, which he will get a lot of pressure from me to do so. So hopefully he chooses to wear his hat tonight, and then I will bring mine along just to work on, and I will have to be okay with that. I think I'm going to switch this back into its little Christmas project bag because it's way more fun to have my festive yarn and things. All right, so it's not going exactly how I hoped, but it is moving along. So let's move on to a project that is, I guess it's still going. I don't know. It's not going, but it is not going how I hoped. I don't know what to say about that. Another festive project bag, but this is one of my Advent projects. This yarn is using a Homespun House Advent. I have only put colors in through day 6. So hopefully this is not going to be anything new that you haven't seen before. But my Beachcomber flares. So this is a pattern by Brianna Lapino, and they are going to be amazing. They're flare pants. I cannot wait to make them. I cannot wait to wear them. I have shorts that I've made from her that I love and adore, but something about the yarn, or maybe just the colors. The yarn is amazing. The colors are amazing. Just, I'm not excited by this, I think, right now. And I was feeling like bummed about being behind and like stressed to catch up on the Advent knitting and just not feeling great about the project in general. So I decided to hit the pause on this, and I talk a lot more about this in Vlogmas, so I'm not going to repeat all of the same things, just in case you are watching both the podcast and the Vlogmas and you're like, Natalie, we heard just say this like 5 days ago. But I'm going to hit pause on this right now, and I'm going to come back to it after Christmas or maybe in the new year and decide. I have lots of options. Do I want to use this Advent for a totally different project and make the pants out of a different yarn? Do I want to just continue from where I left off? Do I want to see all the yarns, all the colors, and maybe arrange them in a different way and then keep going on the pants? So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I maybe did a round or 2 since the last podcast, and this project is officially on pause. I'm going to put it in the bottom of my Ravelry project page so that I don't see it every time I log in, and it is both mentally and physically off the need to work on list, and I'm not even stressing about it right now. So it feels good to make that decision. Next up, this is going to be another quick one because I haven't put any work on it. My Sockmas socks. So Sockmas ends this Friday. So if you're watching on Thursday, it ends tomorrow. So make sure that if you finish a pair of socks, you get your submission in. But I really don't think I've done anything on these socks in the last week. It's only been about the hat and the one other Advent project I'm going to show here in a minute. So this is the Cider House Socks pattern by Summer Lee. It's such a fun pattern. It's a great way to work with cables because there's not a ton of cables, and it's just fun to do. I am using Mandy's Makings Sockmas yarn from this year. This is Snow Globe. And then the top one is the Handmade Ornament. And then I'm using the green that came as a mini with it. So ultimately, I would have finished these before Sockmas ends, but as that is quickly approaching, that is not going to happen, and it is okay. I've had to really be like, I don't know what happens, but I guess I think that there's going to be some sort of holiday magic around December where I suddenly can add on multiple projects and still continue with the projects that I already have. And I even feel like I was more realistic this year than I have been in the past, and it's still not reality. So I've had to really adjust my expectations and say, hey, it's okay that I'm not getting to all of these things. Let's just choose 2 things to focus on. And so for the past week, that has been the hat that I just showed, and then my granny stripe blanket, which will be the thing I show in just a minute. But as soon as the hat is done, I am going to be pulling these out and working on them and trying to get those finished. And my new goal, instead of finishing by Sockmas, it's just to have them finished before Christmas. That gives me an extra 9 days, and we're going to be doing a lot of traveling, and so I should be able to get a lot of time to work on them. So again, not stressed. They're hanging out in my project bucket for later. All right, one more project, and I saved my favorite for last because this project has been bringing me so much joy. And if you haven't seen Fangirl Fibers Retro Sears toy catalog for December 15th, you're going to want to look away because I have just put in day 15's color. So look away if you don't want to see it. So this is the Granny Stripes pattern by Lucy of Attic 24, but adapted for fingering weight. And it's so beautiful. It is huge. So I think I did this since the last podcast, but I also went back and added much better project notes on this project page, including, like, I always had my hook sizes and how many stitches I was using, but now I have my gauge on there. I have my like yarn usage on there. Ooh, I just remembered I haven't been putting the names of the colors. I might have to go back and do that or just delete that section. I don't know. But I have much better notes in there, so hopefully you can follow along. And I know now that this is 5 feet wide. Yeah, 60 inches wide. And yeah, you know what? I think I was talking about this and I was saying all the wrong things. So I'm pretty sure this is 5 feet wide. And that's 60 inches. And I'm going to be aiming for a length of 80 inches. This is like roughly the size of a queen size bed in the United States. I'm pretty sure I looked that up. So 60 by 80 in inches. 5 feet by like 7 and something half feet-ish. I don't know, it's some decimal. So I calculated that when I'm done with Advent, I will only have like 26 more stripes. Each stripe is 2 rows, so that's 52 rows or something like that. But I will be so close to finishing this blanket. So I have a feeling that come January, I will think about maybe continuing daily stripes on this blanket. We shall see. But let me find, okay, so here is the very first day of Advent 2022. And then this is everything that I've done, days 1 through 15. So every single day I'm doing 2 rows, which creates a stripe. It uses 13 grams for me, from this size, 13 grams of yarn-ish. I think some of my leftovers are like 8 grams out of 20. So I do have yarn left, but it's the perfect amount of knitting. It takes me about an hour or so to do my 2 stripes, and it has just been so fun. And I've loved having this like on me as I'm crocheting on it. It's so nice. Toaster, he's actually sleeping right now. Hold on. He really loves this blanket. Actually, you know what? Since we're just going to be sitting here for the next little while, we'll just cover him up. You go, sweet boy. But yes, he has loved that blanket, and every time I have it out, he is like, oh, hold on. Can't see the battery pack of the lights. There we go. Every time I have it out, he is just wants it. Like I put it on top of him if he's laying near me, and it's very, very sweet. So I don't know. I feel like I need to do a summary because the other day I sat down and really like looked at my projects and like kind of made new priorities. So for the rest of the year, I guess I might want to say that since this is our last podcast episode, it's Scrappy Granny Blanket every single day through the 25th. No, the 24th, because the 25th I have a full skein. Oh, I'm going to be sad when I'm done with that. I'm going to finish my hat, hopefully very soon, and then it's my socks, and then from there you'll just have to come back in January and see what I've been casting on and what I've been working on. And of course, if you're not already, follow me on Instagram at Knitty Natty, because I'll be sharing like lots of stuff in my stories in between now and then. That's it for the project segment, so let's move on to the next one. We are going to get into this Q&A segment, and don't worry, I'm not going to drag it on forever. Actually, where's my phone? I was going to do a timer, but you know what? I'll just use our little device over here because I have no idea where my phone went. So these questions are all from Instagram. I got so many amazing questions, and in last week's episode 161, I answered all of the like hottest questions, the ones that were asked multiple times. So if you want to see the answer to questions like how I started knitting, or do Kent and I want to have kids? How did Kent and I meet? What do we all both work on the business full time? That's all in last week's episode, and today I am going to go through these categories and answer a few questions from each. We have knitting questions, we have life questions, and we have business questions. I'm not going to be answering any of the questions about Toaster because we did an entire Vlogmas episode from Toaster's point of view and answered all of those questions in that Vlogmas. So I'll make sure to link that one down below. I think it was day 10, but I'll also put the link. All right, so let's start a timer. Alexa, set a 30-minute timer.
30 minutes.
All right, I'm gonna do the best that I can to stay within these 30 minutes. So let's start with some knitting questions. Okay, number 1, what is your best advice for getting rid of patterns, yarn stash, organizing, and selling? Okay, so this is a huge passion of mine. I have been working this year to completely eliminate my yarn stash, and I have been documenting that journey since before this year. So I have an entire playlist of all of my yarn organization. So I would encourage you to watch this year's, but then also go back and look like 3 years ago at where I started from. Because if you look at like maybe where I'm at now, it can feel like, it may feel like intimidating, but it started somewhere else, and it has been a journey, and it has been a really interesting one. But okay, advice. So my best advice for you is to let it be a journey. You're not going to get rid of everything right away, and it's not going to be the ultimate way you want it to be. So first, I want you to think about your ideal stash. What do I as a knitter and crocheter need and want from my stash right now, currently? And then go by category. So if you have a really large yarn stash, a category may be all fingering weight yarn, like all one type of yarn. If you have a very large stash of like store-bought yarns or big box store yarns, maybe you want to start all with one brand, whatever works for you, because ultimately your stash should be something that is unique to you, and everyone has different stash goals. There's no right or wrong way to have your stash organized, or there's no right or wrong amount of stash to have. So pull out all of one category. Let's just say it's all fingering weight yarn. And then here's really the key bit. Don't try to get rid of things. The key to getting rid of things is actually not looking at what you want to get rid of, but looking at what you want to keep. So look at all of that category and look at, pull out things that are your favorite, that like, it is a no question, 100% capital with 40 exclamation marks, yes. Pull all of those out first. Then take your yes pile and display it in a way that you love, that you like walking by and looking at. For some of us, this may look like in a clear tub, like stored somewhere because we have kids, animals, whatever. But put all that yes in one space that looks good to you. And then everything that's like I don't know, maybe put it in a different space. Just set it aside for now. And you don't have to get rid of anything right away. Something that I really like to do, especially when I'm having a hard time making a decision, is to just do what I just said, like have the stuff that you really love displayed and the other stuff in a separate space. And then in your phone, you can put a reminder in your calendar. Check in 1 month or 3 months or 6 months and look through that maybe no tub again and see if there's anything you're okay letting go of. And I think what's so safe about this method of doing things is that that tub of maybe yes, no, we don't know is still there. You still have it. So if you need to go get something from it, just go get something from it. It's not a big deal, but it's not going to mentally bog you down every single day because it's not in your like, I love this yarn, yes, display spot. So that's just one of my tips, but I have so many videos on this where I'm sharing my process. So I encourage you to go look through those, and we will have one more video at the end, at least one more video. I'm thinking about making it 2 parts, but I'm not sure yet, about my 1 year stashing down journey and everything that I have learned from that. Okay, next question. Oh, this is gonna go well if it takes me 5 minutes to answer every question. How has knitting impacted your mental health? So I find that knitting is such a positive, has such a positive impact on my mental health. I am very comfortable knitting in many situations, and I love that I've been able to reach that because when I first started knitting, I first of all wasn't comfortable like knitting in public because it took so much concentration. But now that knitting is kind of almost like a secondary thing, it's almost like breathing. Like I don't have to think about it as much, and it brings me so much calm. When I'm having a stressful day, literally as soon as I do a few stitches, I feel like my shoulders relax and like my breathing calm down, and it has turned into such a meditative thing for me. And I also find that when I'm out in public and like in social situations that are maybe like less comfortable for me, like, I don't know, I'm not a super like go out to a bar kind of person. And so let's say I'm somewhere where it's really loud, which is very overwhelming for me. It's very loud, and like my husband Ken is very outgoing, so he's like off talking to somebody and I'm sitting alone. I have my knitting and I just knit, and then I feel calm enough to just like be content sitting, like looking around, doing whatever, or waiting, or sitting on the train, or whatever it is. I just find that it is such a reprieve for me, knitting. So it is impacted my mental health in a very positive way. But knitting is not a replacement for therapy. I would say, just as a reminder, therapy is very important and is very helpful. And you can also knit during your therapy session. If your therapist says that you can't, then look for a new therapist because they're wrong and they should be doing things that help you. Okay, last knitting question. If space and money wasn't an issue, what is your dream craft room? Okay, I love this question, and I will say that it took me a minute to come up with my dream craft room, because I would say in the past it would have been like a huge wall full of yarn, and that's just not where I'm at right now. It may be in the future, I don't know. But if I were to create my dream craft room today with no limit on space or money, I would have quite a large room with different corners. So I would love to have like a workstation corner set up where I have a large table that has a camera and a light and everything like set up to film tutorials. Because if I had a setup all of the time with a camera and a phone, like if somebody asked me a question, I could just be like, boom, let me film something really quick, share it on Instagram, share it on YouTube. It would be, the barrier to filming tutorials would be taken down by so much. So that would be amazing to have like that area. I would love to have a corner where I have like a really cool background, maybe like some kind of like a yarny background where I sit to do like podcasts and other sit down videos where I need to sit with the camera. And again, like have everything always set up, but not in the way. And maybe this side of the room, since it's like the workstation side of the room, has like a curtain or something that I can put up and like put work aside, because in the other part of the room, I would love to have like a cozy chair situation. I don't know if anyone watches Suburban Stitcher, but in her like living room main area, she's got like a little circular table and these comfy chairs. She's got 4 chairs around. I would love something like that, whether it's 4 chairs or 6 chairs or whatever, so that I could invite people over to my house to have knit and crochet nights or just like other events. Maybe we have like a TV or something. Like if I had a teaching event, I could like display my hands or show a tutorial, or we could watch a movie together or something like that. Just basically a social space with a table, chairs, and stuff like that. And then maybe in the last corner would be like a me space, like just maybe a big comfy chair with an ottoman I could put my feet up. Maybe that's where I would keep like my yarn, tools, things like that. Overall, I just want like bright, cozy sunlight with a space for all of my work to be just like set up and easy to access, and then a space for socializing. That would be my dream. I am picturing it now. Like the house that we lived in Texas would have been perfect for this. Mostly. It wasn't like a totally square room, and it wasn't quite big enough, but it was like the entry level of our house because we had a townhome. And so it'd be so easy for people to just come over. You know, there was a bathroom there. Oh, that's bathroom close by would be nice if we have people over. But it was just like the perfect space to just have people in, and I never really got to do that. So what would be your dream space? That's such a fun question. Okay, let's move on to life. How do you deal with the life-work balance now that you work for yourself? This is so important because I think there's a really big tendency, especially for business owners, entrepreneurs, and creatives, to feel like you have to work to burn out in order to be valuable. And as a perfectionist, because I've been studying perfectionism this year, and I've been in a course called PGSD, Perfectionist Getting Done. It has totally changed my life and my mindset on this. And I've learned a lot this year. Okay, so practically, how do I balance things? I am a big planner. So in my calendar, let me see if I can show you this actually. And this is all stuff that I learned from PGSD, which is a course that you can sign up for. It's closed right now, but you can also listen to the Perfectionism Project podcast for free. But like just a real quick glimpse, that is my calendar. And I spend usually 1 hour every 1 to 2 weeks planning. And so there's a process for it where I get everything out of my head. I kind of estimate how long everything's going to take, and then I put it into my calendar. Now, this may seem like a lot, especially if you're not used to doing this, or you're like, oh no, I don't want to plan because I want to be like a creative and I want to, do whatever. But this has actually been so important because it's made me be realistic about how long things take. In January of this year and all of 2021, I had no work boundaries. I didn't have a start time. I didn't have a stop time. I always worked on the weekends. I worked at night. I basically never stopped working because I didn't have any boundaries. So what this has allowed me to do is having my calendar like in one place. It's like a puzzle, and I'm able to move things. Like for example, this morning already, I didn't get to start this podcast until later than I thought, but I already know about how long the podcast is going to take. So I literally took an activity, a thing that I needed to do, and I went and I shifted it here, and then I moved the podcast down. And I just like adjust and move things all day long. Just because you have it planned out doesn't mean you have to do it exactly like that. But what I've learned is that podcasting usually takes me 2 hours, and preparing for the podcast usually takes me 45 minutes every single week. And now that I know that, I allow the space and time for myself that other things that are not as important go away. And I have a set start time, and I have a set end time, and I don't work on the weekends anymore for the most part. December's been crazy because it's like sometimes I'm off in the middle of the week, sometimes I'm not, but planning is basically the answer, like going through this perfectionism course, and it is so important. And I just want you to know, if you are a creative person, like you have a creative business and you're working for yourself, that there's always going to be, you're always going to, especially starting out, like you're going to be working long hours, you're going to be working on top of another job or whatever, but protecting yourself from burning out and actually taking the time to rest is going to help your business, because when you do rest, your brain is allowed to, your brain has the time and the energy to actually get creative thoughts. So I don't know if that really all made sense, but it has been a big journey and a big process for me this year, and I'm continuing to learn things about myself, but having that planning piece has been totally key. I work far less than I did at the beginning of the year, and I get way more done. And I actually feel satisfied at the end of the day when I usually stop working around 3:30. So when I'm done working, I'm like, you know what? I feel done for the day, and I move on to the next thing. And it is absolutely the best feeling. Okay, how are you liking? I'm just trying to go faster. How are you liking New York City? Don't be nice, just for us New Yorkers. And then they said also from a maker's point of view. So we are really liking New York City. We are feeling really grateful about the neighborhood that we chose to live in. This is like, when we moved here, we didn't really know much about New York City. And so we moved into this apartment in April of 2021 for 1 year, 15 months. And then we decided to renew our lease for another 12 months. So we're currently here through the end of June of 2023. And then from there, we'll see. But yeah, we're really liking New York. So there's a couple other questions about like, what do you like about New York? Or like, what do you not like about New York? I think that was actually the exact question. And I have to say, I really like not having a car. That has been amazing. You really don't want to have a car in New York City, or at least in Manhattan, I feel like, because it's easier to get places without a car. So I love that I can just walk somewhere. I love that if Kent and I are going to do something together, and like on the way home, we decide to make separate plans, it's so easy for me to get home on my own or to go somewhere else on my own. It's made me feel like more independent, honestly. And it's a cool place to be. Like I love the culture here, and just that, I don't know, I guess I didn't realize how similar, I guess, not every person, I'm not trying to dig on like Texas or anything, but I guess I just didn't realize like how my world was kind of small, or at least kind of similar people. And so here it's like everything is so different. Everyone is like, has different jobs, has different backgrounds, has different personalities. And so it's very cool living here. I really do like New York. And no matter what we do next, I feel like New York will always have a special place in my heart, and also in like Kent and I's relationship, because I feel like we grew and changed a lot while we were here. And so this couple of years of our marriage has been really good here and really amazing. And yeah, it will always have a special place in my heart. And I love going to Broadway shows here. All right. What is your biggest piece of advice for taking the leap to move somewhere new? Okay. So when we decided to move to New York, it was kind of an out of the blue thing for so many people. So if you are thinking about moving somewhere new, my advice for you is this. First, tell people. Tell people that you are moving somewhere new. Because I think when you tell people, it adds that level of like, you know, accountability that like if you change your mind, which you still can and you should feel okay doing that, people know about it. Or people will be asking you questions about it, and it will kind of get you into like kick your brain into gear of figuring things out. And I think that that can be like a helpful accountability piece when you're scared to make a decision. So tell people about it. The second thing is when we decided to move here, we did a lot of research, or as much as we could. We watched a lot of YouTube videos, mostly on apartments, because we just had no idea what to expect. And I'm really glad we did, because the apartment like style, size, and everything in New York is very different from Texas. And so it helped me actually manage my expectations for like the amount of apartment that we could afford before we got here. So I didn't get here and then get disappointed. Like I already kind of had a feeling of what to expect. I would say visit if you can. We were able to come up to New York City for 2 weeks. That's the only amount of time I spent in New York before we moved here. And that was good. It doesn't really help you get the whole lay of the land. So if you're moving somewhere and you're going to be there for a while, I would say rent first. Don't buy when you're first moving somewhere, because you just don't know like what your range of places that you go is going to be. It's so hard to like choose a neighborhood or choose an area if you don't actually live there. So rent first if you can. And then last thing, give yourself a year. I find that whenever I've moved somewhere new, because this is actually the second time I've moved somewhere completely new that I had never been before. When I moved after college, I moved to Dallas. I had never been to Dallas, and I just moved there for work. And I would say it really takes a year to feel comfortable, and not that you're going to feel uncomfortable, but like to feel like you, like going outside every day isn't an effort to like, where am I going? What am I doing? This doesn't feel familiar. It really takes a year. So give yourself time when you do move, and good luck to you. I hope you are feeling encouraged and you're moving somewhere exciting, and I'm excited for you to move somewhere new. Okay. Oh wait, I highlighted way too many life questions. Maybe we'll come back to these. I'm going to move on to the business ones for now. Okay. Any advice for running a successful knit or crochet business like yours, speaking as an entrepreneur? Well, first of all, thank you for saying that my business is successful. I appreciate you so much. I don't think I called what I'm doing a business until early this year, to be perfectly honest, because I think when you put the label business on it, it feels so real and so responsible and so scary. But if you are making content or making products and then you're selling them for, for money, or I guess for whatever, if you're making content and it's like not just for fun, like you have a business, and that's exciting, and you should be so proud of yourself for that. Okay, so what would I say? I would say give yourself time to succeed, especially if you're trying to start a podcast or some kind of content creation. I feel like it's really easy to look at people that you admire and feel like you should get there quickly. So what I mean by that is, like, when I first started out podcasting, I would be looking at people like, let's say, Tony Lipsy of TL Yarn Crafts, or like Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. And they're like 10 steps ahead of me, right? They started before me. They're doing business in a different way. Whoever the person is that you're looking at, like, realize that you can get there, but it takes time to get there because it took them time to get there. And they may be 5 or 10 steps ahead of you. And if you compare yourself always to those who are in different stages, you're going to feel disappointed and you're going to feel like you're not growing fast enough. And that simply just isn't true. It takes everyone time to get to where they are. It takes everyone work to get to where they are. And while you may be seeing something in the 10th stage of their journey, like you didn't have to see all the things that they had to do to get there. So my biggest advice is give yourself time. And secondly, please value yourself. Toaster's snoring. Please value yourself properly. Please don't feel like, what am I trying to say? When you're setting prices and things for yourself, like value yourself and don't undersell yourself. And I think it's so easy as a crafting community to feel like when we're charging for things, it's like icky or like sly or something like that. But that's silly. You're running a business, you're providing a service, or you're providing patterns, or you're providing classes or whatever. And like, you should charge fairly. You should be paid fairly for those things that you're doing and for the skills that you have. And the more of us in the community that are doing that, we're valuing each other. We're like valuing people that we follow by, paying $7 to $9 for a pattern. Sorry about that. I totally forgot that my camera only will record for like 22 minutes. So I think what I was saying was, it's okay to charge for things that you're doing and you should value yourself in that. And the more of us that do it, the more of us are like setting that expectation for the business, and it lifts us all up. Okay, I feel like I'm on a soapbox. Also, I just learned that there's only 6 minutes left on my timer. How does this happen? It goes by so fast. Okay, next question about business. Did you teach a grade level or a subject, and how did your teaching experience prepare you to be a successful business owner? Again, thank you for saying successful. Like, it still feels so weird to me, but I'm gonna absorb it and try to own it. So I started out teaching in 2014. I was a 4th grade teacher for 1 year, and then I was a kindergarten teacher for 2 years. And then I was like, I cannot do classroom teaching anymore. It is too much for me. And so I changed schools within my district. I wanted to stay at my school, but they just didn't have a position open for a reading interventionist. So this is like a reading specialist kind of a role where you have a small group of children. So then I went to, in this other school, I was a reading specialist for 3.5 years. And that final year of 2021 is when I left teaching and started doing Knitty Natty full time as my only job. So yeah, that's what I did. And I feel like it prepared me in a way that, many jobs can prepare you for just working in general. Like, I think having to work, like do that job, the teaching job, and wake up super early and get there. And I also had like other responsibilities there to do planning and stuff. But I really wish I knew what I knew now about planning in that job. It would have been so much easier. I was beating myself up so much and making it so much harder on myself. But that's here nor there. But I think just like the teaching skills in general have helped me to, has translated to knitting, because I do a lot of knitting tutorials. I'm now teaching knitting classes, and I get a lot of really lovely feedback from people saying that they really like my teaching style and the way that I explain things. So thank you. I feel like that's totally come from teaching and like being with students. And I totally do miss that aspect of teaching. And there's just something about working with kids that's so amazing. Okay. Do you ever get embarrassed or uncomfortable filming or talking to the camera in public? So it's definitely gotten easier over the years, but I don't really feel embarrassed so much. The thing that I'm still kind of uncomfortable with is talking to the camera in public. So if I was out somewhere and I'm like holding the camera and talking, I feel weird about that. But if I'm just filming something where I know I'm gonna put music over it, I don't feel embarrassed at all. to do that. Other thing is like when I'm live, like when I'm interacting with people, we just did a live where I was walking around Central Park and walking in the city. Like that to me is different than like holding up and like recording something that's going to be played later. And I feel totally comfortable doing that. So like something about the live element and the interaction makes it feel more legit and not embarrassing for me. So that's no problem. And then this one says, do you get nervous when you send a new pattern out to testers or when you publish it for sale? So yeah, I think that this is totally normal. I mostly get anxious when I send the pattern out to testers because whenever you first send out the pattern and people are first looking through it, there's a lot more feedback because that's the first eyes that are on there. You know, there's just going to be a lot more. Like I anticipate all of the like messages and emails for that first couple of days. That's the hardest part, but it is so important. And I actually really value testers that give a lot of feedback because it makes the pattern so much better for when it does go public, for when people are paying for your pattern, they're removed from you, they don't know you. And so there's a lot more, I guess like there's a room for judgment more when somebody's paid for something and like don't have immediate access to you. Whereas when you have your testers, they're there to help you, to give you feedback, to offer suggestions. And it is so valuable because then when it goes to the public, hopefully there's not going to be as many questions because you went through that all with the testers. So yeah, I totally still get a little anxious about it. But once I get through those first few days with the testers, it all seems to come into place. And by the time I'm ready to put it out for sale, like it feels like it's in a spot that is ready for everyone. All right, I've got a minute left on my timer, so we're gonna move into our rapid fire questions. Okay, random, but how old are you? I am 30 years old. Favorite and least favorite thing about living in New York City? My favorite is not having a car, and my least favorite is the lack of proper air conditioning. I could go on forever, so I'm not going to. Let's see, I made my first Musselburgh. It was massive. What size needles do you use and stitches per round? I've got details on my project page, but I've used a US 2 needle for all of them. My gauge is 8 stitches per inch, and I increased to like 132 or something. I don't know, it's in the project page, so go down there. How many sweaters do you think you'll knit next year? So I looked back and I made 5 sweaters this year. So my estimate for next year is maybe 4. I'm gonna go on the lower side just in case. Let's see, how many scraps do you have left? Let's just put in a photo here because I have a lot. More to come in 2023 on these. What do you use for wool wash? My favorite is the Tuft Woolens, like bars of soap. Alexa, stop timer. The Tuft Woolen bars are my favorite because I'm trying really hard to do things that are more environmentally friendly, and it's nice not to have the plastic bottle. We have like 4 more quick questions, so let's just finish those up real quick. Do you think you will bring back the definition collection for Christmas? It's great for gifting. Actually, I sneakily put up the definition collection and it is available now. So if you want to get yourself something, or I think there's probably not enough time to order for Christmas now, but you can still get yourself a Christmas present. I'll put the link down below. The definition collection is back for a limited time. Do you think cables are easy enough for beginners? Yes, I do. You should do it. How do you hold your yarn to knit? I hold my yarn in my right hand and I throw. So I pick up my hand and I wrap around. You'll see that in some of my tutorials. What are the best bags for knitting and crocheting? Well, I'm a little biased, but I'm going to say my float tote. I love using a float tote. I'm also a huge fan of Black Pearl Magic right here. And then last one, what did you do with last year's Fangirl Fibers Advent? I have 2 full Fangirl Fibers Advents, and they are napping in my closet. I have one from last Christmas and one from the summer, which is a Pokemon one. So again, stay tuned for 2023 and maybe the year of the minis. All right, let's move on to some news. So Not too much new going on, but the most important thing I want to make sure you know is that on Friday, December 16th, this Friday, we have our Sockmas closing ceremonies, which is going to be live here on the Knitty Natty channel. We're mostly going to chit chat and work on our socks together. Well, I'm going to work on my socks because they won't be done. Hopefully your socks are done. So if you are participating in Sockmas and you finish a pair of socks, make sure that you get those submitted in the Google form before Friday, December 16th at noon. Then it's going to close, that form will close, and between noon and 5 p.m. Eastern time when we have our closing ceremony, we're going to be going through all of the entries, getting your bonuses like duplicated and selecting our prize winners so that at 5 p.m. at the closing ceremony, I will be able to announce our winners for this year. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And thank you everyone for participating this year in Sockmas. I feel like, I hate this, but I feel like it's another year that I failed a little bit because I really wanted to be knitting my socks alongside everybody. So I've already kind of been thinking about maybe next year, like having this make along run in November, like from the beginning of November to the end. So let me know your thoughts on that. Like maybe that would work out better, and then that way December can be all about Advent. I'm already thinking ahead to next year. I'm also petting Toaster if you're wondering what my arm is doing. He's such a sweet boy. Okay. Other than that, I've had several new videos come out since the last podcast. Every single day at 8 a.m. from December 1st to December 25th, I have a new Vlogmas video going up. So Vlogmas is just where I film every single day, kind of what's going on. Every day is a little bit different. For example, I think our vlog yesterday was 40 minutes long, which is very long because I talked a lot that day. I had a lot of projects to talk through and things like that. But then other days it's maybe like 15 or 20 minutes and it's mostly music and me showing things in New York City or showing the food that we had. We had the day on day 10 where it was a Toaster vlog and it was all about Toaster and showing his routine. So every day is a little bit different, but you're still getting a lot of the same things where I'm opening up my advents. Kent and I are playing our guessing game like we do every year. It's a lot of fun and there's still a lot more to come. So stay tuned for more episodes, and there's a whole playlist for Vlogmas that I'll put down below if you want to start from the beginning, or if you just want to start with us where we are right now, or save the playlist. I've been thinking a lot about saving people's Vlogmas playlists for like the week between Christmas and New Year's and also January, where it's kind of like, what do you watch? People aren't putting things out. What do you do? It's cold outside. You know, you just need those joyful things to come back to. So basically don't feel like you have to stay caught up and then save it for later. And then coming up, so this is the last podcast of the year. However, I do have more videos coming aside from Vlogmas. So there will be no podcast next Thursday, the 22nd. We're going to be traveling. So that's not going to work. I will not be able to put a podcast out then. But the following Thursday, I'm planning for my 1 year stash update. So a big review on the whole year of stashing down and how that went in numbers, as well as like just a kind of an analyzing like the lessons learned and everything from stashing down for 1 year. I'm going to save, I think, my plans for 2023 for a second video, but I do have more plans and goals, so that will be coming up. And then in the new year, I will have a 2022 year in review. That's where I go back through all of my projects. I don't show every single one, like don't worry, that would take forever. But I go back through and I'm like, okay, I made this many sweaters and this many socks and this many things. Like, what does that mean? I select my favorite projects from the year. I talk about goals I had and how if I achieved them, and just kind of review the year. It's very fun to do, and I totally encourage you to do the same thing if you keep track of your projects. It can just be one, a fun way to see how the year went, and then two, just a way to reflect on like what your knitting and crochet has said about you, and like how your year went and everything. It can be very telling. Like if you had, I think there was a year where I had, probably last year, just like simple projects only, and it was a very stressful year. And so that makes sense. I'll have my little Instagram stories that I normally do where you can post your year in review, because that's always fun to look at it and to share. I think that's it. So hopefully I will see you at the cast on party on Friday at 5 p.m. All right, let's wrap things up by talking about life. So over the last week, I don't know, we had Kent's mom here, and then she left on Wednesday afternoon. And then we had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days to kind of recoup, kind of get the apartment back, settle back into our rhythm of things, rest before Monday when we had a bunch of friends come in. So currently it is Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. And Kent has 3 of his friends that he games online with here visiting. And I think 3 more are coming or 2 more are coming. I don't know. Some of them are staying with us. Some of them are not. So it's going to be an interesting next week because some of them are here through next Sunday. And then right after that, we have 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, we are leaving for Nashville. We are going to be making the drive from New York City to Nashville, Tennessee, so we can bring Toaster with us and spend Christmas with my family. We got to see Kent's mom. She came up here in December, so now we're going to go see my family and all of my siblings, and the last few days of Vlogmas will be that. We will be in Nashville, so that will be very, very fun. But it's a crazy time of year, but it's good. So really, we didn't really do that much. I mean, actually did a lot of events. We had several events over the weekend, but all of those things are in Vlogmas. So I'm not going to reiterate what's already happened, but if you want to see all the things that we've been getting up to, definitely watch those Vlogmas episodes. Okay, I have started a new book. So last week I was talking about the book Neanderthal Seeks Human by Penny Reed. It is the Knitting in the City series, and I shared that I was just not really sure about it. Like I couldn't really understand what genre it was, and I ultimately decided to stop reading it. I often don't do that with books because I feel like I'm quitting, which is very silly, especially when you're reading a book just for fun. But I just something about it was irking me. I don't know if it was because it was written over 10 years ago, there's like casual mention of being roofied and like, ha ha ha, they just kind of like laugh it off. And there were just a few other things that I was like, you know what, I'm just not really feeling like the dynamic between the characters. It's making me feel icky. I don't really want to read it. So I stopped reading it. But then I talked to several people and they let me know that the first book is difficult to get through because it just is kind of like all over the place, and that the rest of the series is actually very good, very funny, very interesting, and that it is a romance, and that not only is there that Knitting in the City series, but I think there's a bunch of spin-offs in that world. So I might be going back to it later on and seeing if I can get through the first book to then enjoy the rest of the series, because so many people did recommend it and say that it was good. So there you go. I'm sharing everything that I know. If you have more information and want to share your thoughts on it, please, please comment and let me know, because I never want to like force myself to do something that's for fun, like reading, knitting, crocheting, eating things, whatever, that is making me feel uncomfortable. But there is like that element of like, sometimes not everything is 100% awesome. And then like later, there's a benefit to it later. Like if you get through the first book, you get to enjoy like 17 books that are great, you know, like that would be worth it. So I might come back to it later. I don't know right now. So instead, I went back to my tried and true Bridgerton books. I learned, I don't know, sometime a few months ago, after I finished reading all of the first like 8 Bridgerton books, which I just love, that there are other spin-off series. So I am reading the 4th and final book from the Roxby series, and it is called First Comes Scandal by Julia Quinn. So it is a Bridgerton prequel series called the Roxby series, and I have laughed so much. I have read this so fast. I'm already like 70% of the way done. So I'm really happy with myself for the decision to switch from one book I wasn't enjoying to one that I am. And then just the fact that I'm like eating it up, like I can't stop reading it, just shows that this is the book I need to be reading right now, like something that I am enjoying and just can't wait to read at night and all of that. So I'm enjoying that very much. And I started watching a new series on Netflix, the Harry and Meghan docu-series about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. There are 3 episodes out now as I'm talking about this, but I think by the time this posts, there will be more coming out, but it is fascinating and very interesting. And I would definitely recommend it if you're interested in hearing about, you know, the whole media in UK media and like the royal family and all that stuff. It's just very fascinating to me. So I watched those up really fast and really have enjoyed watching that and can't wait for the rest of the series to come out. All right, weekly wins. And I do think we're going to change this like segment for next year. So this may be the last weekly win of the podcast. And I just have to say, like, this is something that I needed. These weekly wins are something that I needed this year to, it's been such a year of reflection and like learning about myself and learning about my tastes when I'm knitting and like just so many things. And so taking the lens of like looking at the whole week and deciding like what was a win, big or small, has been really important for me this year. And I hope that it has been of value like for you. And like I think that it's a great lens to look through, like always looking for something that like being proud of yourself for things that you have gone through and learned and worked through, and realizing that you're always growing. Okay, I'm going to stop with the sappiness. So my weekly win this week is adapting well to having our guests here and not feeling super stressed about it. Before Kent's mom came to visit, I shared that I was having like anxiety about that, just in a small space, and like sharing that space and not having my normal routine is something that's difficult for me. And so it was fine. When she was here, it was fine. It was great. It was no problem, really. But I thought that when our friends were coming into town, or when Kent's friends were coming into town, because there were more of them that were going to be here, because they were going to be in the living room and I was going to be in my bedroom for the majority of the time, that would actually be more stressful. And I know they've only been here for a little bit because they just got here yesterday, but I didn't feel that same level of anxiety about it. And so I'm proud of myself because I feel like I'm learning to adapt or learning what works for me. And here's what I did, just to share. We brought my desk from the living room into the bedroom so that I'm set up in there to work. I have a door I can close and I can focus. I brought my coffee maker into the bedroom so that in the morning I can still get up. I can make my coffee without disturbing everyone that's sleeping in here because our kitchen is right here. I can make my coffee. I set up, I made myself overnight oats so that my breakfast would be ready for me so that I could come and just quietly get it out of the fridge, go into the bedroom, eat my breakfast, drink my coffee, watch my Vlogmases with my headphones, get up and work, like all on the schedule that works for me and like giving myself time in the morning while also coexisting with our guests and hopefully not disturbing them, hopefully. And that just set me up for a really like smooth transition. I gave myself the things that I need while also I hope being able to be a good host. So there you go, just sharing with you things that I've tried and that are helping me at this moment. And I feel very good about that. All right. Happy 2022 to 2023. Thanks for watching the podcast this year. I will, of course, be making more Vlogmases and other videos throughout the end of 2022. But if you're only here for the podcast, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your December, rest of your 2022, and I will see you in 2023.